Welcome to the Happy Mindset, episode 162. Today's episode is called An Illustrated Journey. Today I'm joined by Ella Byworth. Ella is a freelance illustrator. Her clients include Braun, Boots, Johnson's and Metro UK. On today's episode we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about mental health, spirituality, art, the artistic process. Ella delves into some of her own personal journey. We talk a little bit around ayahuasca. She's based in Brazil, or she was based in Brazil when we were recording this podcast. So we just talk a little bit about art, Ella's creative process, mental health, well-being, and just have a conversation around all these things. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and thanks again for listening. Okay, so thanks for joining us today, Ella.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Excited to be here.
So how's your day going today?
It's going really good. I've ticked a lot of things off the to-do list. I woke up really early, like naturally, which was amazing. And I made bread.
Made it from scratch, like, is it?
Yeah. Worked, did some yoga, ticked a lot of things off the to-do list.
Yeah, so because you're in Brazil right now, it's your first time in Brazil. What's the experience been like so far?
This is my second time in Brazil. I was here for the World Cup in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been here now for a year, just over a year. I have one of my very good friends lives here, and we were flatmates in London. So I came over here to say hello, and then the pandemic happened, and here I am. Yeah. It's not planned, but trying to make the best of this. It's a strange situation at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, how are you finding yourself making the best of the pandemic? Like, what's coming up for you right now that's an opportunity?
Okay, so I've come to like the quietest place I could find because statistics for the virus here were horrific. So I'm in this tiny little town surrounded by a lot of farms. I try not to read the news too much, to be honest with you. Like just what I need to, because a lot of it's very negative, it's very scary. I get a lot of messages from everyone overseas saying, oh my God, I see this is happening in Brazil, I see this and I see this. And yeah, it's very full on. Do I stay? Do I go? I don't really know what to do. It's a good place that I'm in at the moment and a good time for me to stay quiet, to focus on my art, which is what I think I'm intending to do at the moment.
Yes, we get to your art. When did you start drawing?
When I was a kid, I've always drawn. I love it. I love painting, drawing, any kind of, making something, sticking things together. And then I studied at university graphic design and multimedia because I thought it was a very practical way of using art. I thought it would be a good, as we're stepping into this, or it was stepped into it, this digital world, I thought it was a good tool to have alongside art.
So when did you start finding your style in art? Because like when I look at your images, they've got a distinct type of style to them. You remember when you started discovering that style?
I think when I started working for the newspaper, that was probably like the real kick, let's go. Prior to that, I was doing a lot of sketches, a lot of drawing, looking at influences that I had. And then when I started working for the paper, it was like, go, 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 all day, drawing, go. And it really like exploded at that point.
Was it kind of like feeling like a professional? What do you think changed for yourself?
Imposter syndrome. I never think of myself as a professional.
Yeah, what do you think yourself as when you're doing your work? Because you do get paid for your work. So like what do you think yourself as?
I call myself an illustrator, but Lately, I've been really stepping away from the digital, and I've been trying to focus more on. I'm doing so much watercolor at the moment, a lot of acrylic painting on canvases too. I found in the quarantine that's when that shift really started.
Kind of like back to basics in a way, or
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. Stepping away from the computer. Because we were in the house for 24 hours a day. I was working on the computer, doing that as my regular job. And then when you've got lots of spare time in your house, I'm sure everybody started new hobbies in quarantine.
Mm.
I really like plowed into the painting. And since then, just, yeah.
And what does it give you that the digital doesn't give you?
Good question. I like getting messy. I love having paint all over my hands and on my legs, and just it's a different kind of expression. I think it's more when I'm on the computer, it's like thinking about shortcuts I've got to press on the keyboard and
Mm.
hand-eye coordination, whereas when you're painting by hand, it's just a totally different expression.
Do you find yourself in states of flow then when you're engaging with your art?
Totally in the zone.
Yeah. How do you find,
Yeah,
is there any way for you to get into that zone, or is it like is there anything you
I
do that
have
helps you get into that state? No.
procrastinate. I
Do
am shocking at procrastination. Oh my God.
you think that might help in any way, the
Yeah,
procrastination? Yeah.
I was like this at university, leave it till last minute, and then there's this blast of creativity, and it's like, "Ah," comes out, done. Yeah, it's just, some days I'm quite like strict with myself. There was, in quarantine, I was very much like, I have this self-care checklist that I do.
Mm.
A bit of drawing, a bit of painting, yoga, drink a cup of tea, all these things, feel good things.
Yeah.
And one of the things on that list in quarantine was 5 minutes of like doing this project a day. So I was really strict with myself. If I didn't feel like I was in the zone, it was like, no, come on, because I struggled so much in quarantine. I knew I had to stick to this list of meditation, yoga, go and do this, go and do that, go and do that.
Was 5 minutes a deliberate time frame?
Yeah, I read a book on micro habits,
Mm.
and they talk about how even one page of a book a day, you just do it. It's like 20 seconds of your time, just go and do it. And then you're one page closer to finishing the whole book. And when you actually go to do the task, you obviously stay longer than,
Mm.
that, what 5 minutes I set myself.
Would it take you long to do a drawing? Is there an average kind of time frame it takes you to finish an illustration?
It really depends on what it is. It's how much is going on in the background, how much is going on in the character. I like to draw a lot of characters. And then it can depend on how much detail I put in. I can just do basic shapes. It'll take me like 3 hours, maybe for something really simple.
Mm.
Really simple. And then there's other things that will take days, days, days. Just depending on how much, detail I put into it.
So for the ones that takes you like a few days, is there a chunking process that goes into that? Or do you just kind of immerse yourself in it for the few days?
I like to break things down smaller
Mm.
because I get very overwhelmed by big tasks. So I'll literally crop the picture into a corner and work on that quarter for a bit. And then I'll do that. Or I'll take separate objects, like I'm going to work on the character today, or I'm going to work on the details of a plant. It's those
Yeah.
micro habits again. A little bit each day goes a long way.
When did you start realizing the balance between the discipline, consistency, and just breaking things down to small chunks, and then the actual flow to creating something that isn't very rigid? There's some spontaneity there as well.
it's a constant juggle of, you just try and balance everything. And yeah, I'm very hard on myself sometimes. Like, you need to work harder, you need to do more. Like, just chill out. Be kind.
How have you learned to work with that, though? I think that's a common thing, that we are quite hard on ourselves to be productive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very difficult one because I like to give everything my best shot. I like to, yeah, feel like I've done a good job. I like that. So if I don't get something done, I just have to be like, okay. I'm really trying to work with this procrastination thing because it's self-sabotage sometimes.
Have you thought about why you could be self-sabotaging yourself, or?
Why I could be?
Mm,
Well, I watched some TED Talks on this,
yeah.
and they say that procrastination is like, it's just another theory, isn't it? But they say it's defending yourself for if you fail. Like, oh, well, I didn't work that hard on it anyway, so that's why it failed.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel as personal than if you do fail.
Yeah.
I didn't really do my
But it's
best,
like
kind of thing.
a subconscious thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
But when you delve really deep, it's like, are they right? Is that why I'm doing this?
Do you do any
Yeah.
journaling or anything?
I have recently started, and I say recently as in like last week,
Okay.
because I've been posting some things on my Instagram, and I found like I'm running out of things to talk about. I'm like, I need to just talk about things that are happening to me because it's happening to other people out there too.
Mm.
I did do a bit of this in the past, but then recently I've just made it less personal, I suppose. But now I think this journaling, I'm thinking like, oh, there's a lot of interesting questions and conversations that I'm putting down here. Maybe these are things I could talk about with my art.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So,
I suppose you could journal around the
yeah,
procrastination and self-sabotage and see what comes out.
yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, I know that there's some things I have posted in the past which are quite personal pieces. But then there's other things that I don't want to make about me because I want to start a conversation on my platform. I want people to talk. I want my Instagram to be a space to start conversations so we can all educate each other on
And
different
grow.
opinions and different. That's what I love about traveling. You get to see different people, different situations, different normals,
Yeah,
all different
I was gonna
things.
ask you, like, what have you learned about normal from your travels? That word.
Nobody is. What
Yeah.
is normal? Nobody is. We're all trying to be normal, and it's like, who are you trying to be? Just be you.
Yeah. It is kind of a wasted energy, wasted time. But it is it's an unconscious thing that I think you have to work consciously through. It's like the self-sabotage thing. There, you don't feel like you're doing it yourself, but your unconscious is holding you back in some way that you have to kind of work with and uncover what's really the real reason there.
Yeah, yeah. You have to be self-aware. I think
Yeah.
is, a, is the right word to use.
What sort of conversations are important for you? What would look like success to you, like, in the types of conversations you'd like to see starting from your platform?
Um, I really like to talk a lot about racism. That's something that is just, it makes me, yeah, it's a no-no.
Hmm.
So I like to, I remember like during the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a lot of conversations happening on my Instagram. That was a really, yeah, sort of a activism kind of in a way. I try to do these things. I like having conversations like that about homophobia. That's not something that I tolerate, put up with. That's something that I like to talk about on there. Just things I think that are taboo. I like to talk about things that mental health is a huge one. People are so afraid to talk about things. I think in recent years, this has completely transformed. We have things like this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But prior to these last, I don't know, 5 years, it's really transformed.
Yeah.
That's something I love to talk about too, just what is normal. There's all different kinds of everybody out there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of taking it to heart too, like really taking that seriously, like what is normal, because when you don't question it, you just assume stuff is normal, and that's where your biases and all your different things come out unconsciously then.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to put myself in different situations and circumstances so I can just expand my awareness, why people act like they do, why people do the things and say the things that they do.
Yeah. Actually, with the taboo, so you draw about stuff that can be taboo. How does that actually, how have you found that helping you as a person, like mental health wise and or otherwise? Is there any benefits to being willing to put yourself through the discomfort of talking about taboo topics?
I think I talk about these taboo things which happen to 99% people. People are so scared to talk about these things. So I've copped a lot of abuse in the past for some of the things that I've posted. That's just part of it, isn't it? People are not always going to agree and like what you have to say or do. And sometimes people are just, you've hit a nerve and they're projecting. And I don't know, that I try to be a nice person. I try to be like good to others, and I know not everyone's going to agree with what I have to say, but I'm following my heart, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When did you learn to follow your heart? Was that always there, or was it something you learned over time?
I think I've always been very following my heart. No, I haven't always been.
Hmm.
I question myself a lot. I think it's I don't know if that's something I've always done. Feeling aligned, when you're feeling good and everything's going good and you're feeling happy, it's very easy to follow your heart and stay aligned with that sort of stuff. And then we have these dips in life. Like life's a roller coaster, isn't it? The
Hmm.
ups and the downs, and that's natural, and that's how it is. I need to listen to my heart in those times as well, instead of being like, no, you've done everything wrong, and no.
Does
It's
your art help you to deal with the down times in your life, make sense of it?
totally,
Yeah.
yeah, it's expression. Like the journaling I've just started as well. There's a lot of like secret things that I like to draw in my illustrations too.
All right, I
Like
like that.
if it's about a dating story, for example, and it's about like someone cheating on whatever,
Hmm.
I'll do a little detail maybe on a t-shirt or something of a red flag. You know,
Something subtle. Yeah.
little things. I just like to, it's like a little expression, like, yeah, just put that there, yeah, red flags.
Yeah, no, I think that makes it more exciting. Like David does the drawings for our podcast, and he often
Yeah,
does that. He puts stuff in there that's quite secret, or like, well, it's not secret. It's just a reference that he would get because he knows it, and
yeah.
I like that.
And sometimes you point it out, sometimes people notice, and
Yeah, it's kind of like a puzzle. I think it just keeps people on their toes that they might notice something they'd never noticed before, and I
yeah,
like that. It's kind of like reading a book that's got wisdom in it, and you read it so many different times, you get so many different perspectives each time you read it.
yeah.
Different perspectives, like from the same exact same words that you're reading.
Have you watched Midnight Gospel on Netflix?
Don't think so. No. What's
You
that?
need to. You need to.
What is it?
It's a mini series on Netflix, all about mental health, spirituality, but it's a podcast. So they're
Okay.
talking about all this kind of stuff. And in the back, like for the series, they've created a cartoon to go along with the sound of the podcast.
Okay.
The cartoon that's happening is absolutely nothing that's related to what they're talking about.
Okay.
It's really fun to watch because you're watching what's happening to the characters, and then you're trying to listen to this podcast at the same time. And it's like, yeah, like you just said, you learn more every time you rewatch it. You get more from it.
I find that that's a good way of dropping into your heart when you confuse your intellect. Because I think that's what's going on there. You're caught between two different things. You're trying to make sense of it, and you can't make sense of it. And your heart's more opened up to understanding something different, I think. Well, that's kind of my interpretation of it. Um,
Yeah, yeah, you can be in like a different mindset totally, or yeah, watching it different again and again. It's just yeah, you find out more.
I'm gonna check that out. What's the name of it again?
Midnight Gospel.
Midnight Gospel. Okay, I'll check that out. The other thing you mentioned, like spirituality, you mentioned before the podcast that you wouldn't have considered yourself somebody who was interested in more the spiritual nature of things. Do you remember when that changed for you?
Mm. I think in my early 20s, possibly around the time I got into yoga. Originally, I started doing yoga for the exercise part of it, and it
Yeah,
wasn't about the namaste side of it.
yeah, yeah.
And then with more and more practice, that it completely changed. And then crystals became a huge part of my life, and smudging and magic things, you know.
What is smudging?
When you burn herbs, it's usually sage.
Hmm.
Um, it's a, I think I read that it's a very old practice. I originally believed with Native American Indians, but I think as well the Celts, the
Okay.
Romans. Anyway, you burn herbs, sage, to cleanse negative energy out of a space or a room that you're in,
Hmm.
or an object. It's like yeah.
Hmm. Is there a reason for the sage as well? No, I think there is something to those things. I think there's a lot of stuff to that stuff, but it's intangible. But it's kind of just believing that the intangible is just as powerful as the tangible, if not more powerful, because everything starts in the intangible world. That's in the intangible world right now. That's kind of the way I kind of
Yeah, the
think about
spirit
things.
realm.
Yeah, so it has to start there, like because most of the stuff in the world today didn't exist back through the
Yeah,
centuries and stuff.
yeah. I really started. I already did believe in it, but when I did ayahuasca ceremonies in Peru, it was like just um, I don't know what to say. Like it just gave me the thumbs up. Like this is the deal.
Eye opening. How was the ayahuasca ceremony? What did you get from that?
Yeah. So I went into the Amazon with some friends to ayahuasca retreat. A shaman hosts, and there was a bunch of, I don't know, maybe 20 other people there that had been doing a 10-week course. And we did an ayahuasca ceremony 3 nights back to back. And it was the most mind-blowing experience. It was just life-changing.
Hmm.
Really opens up something. Because I went there with a lot of questions. I really suffered in the past with depression, with anxiety, eating disorders. Just I really, really struggled for a lot of years with that horrible inner voice, like anxiety knocking all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd heard that ayahuasca was like a cure for depression.
Hmm.
Um, and I did a lot of research. I watched a lot of documentaries. I spoke to people, did all my research, and then yeah, my friend was like, "Let's go do it." So went in there, and It was like I had a list of things I wanted to try and work through during the ceremony. And I felt like all of those things were worked through in the first half an hour. And then the medicine was really working. And it was like, come on, Ella, let's get to some real stuff now. Like it goes really, it's like,
Deep.
you don't care about that ex-boyfriend that did that. You don't care about that. Come on, get over it. Now we're going to work like on some deep.
Oh, okay. So on the list, there was like the symptoms, I guess, of your miseries and stuff, and then you go deeper into like what this is really about. And
Things I was holding on to, like anger towards friends that had done something or a boyfriend that had done something, just doesn't matter. Just let it go.
yeah, that is a tricky one, though, right? I think it's like holding on to resentment is something more on an unconscious level than a conscious level a lot of the time.
It's the ego.
Yeah, which is your sense of identity and sense of who you are, which is deep.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get hurt by somebody, you go into defense mechanism. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Oh,
it doesn't serve you to hold on to these things.
no, definitely not. No, like yeah, that I'd be on the same intention to let go of things, but I think there's also an element of you let go of things in your own time when you're ready, and you don't necessarily get
Totally.
to decide that when on a conscious level. But were you
Totally.
nervous before you did the ceremony?
Oh my God, I was freaking
Yeah,
out. I
outside the comfort
was
zone.
so scared. Oh my
Yeah.
God. It I was meditating like full on days before because you have to do a diet before you go in. So you fast. There's no sugar, salt, fats, no meat, no, like it's really plain because you vomit a lot in the ceremony. So for
Is
the
it?
week, you vomit all of
Oh
the.
yeah, yeah. Is it? Is that like a grounding thing as well? Those types of foods, or what? What's going on there?
They told me it was to cleanse your body before you go in. So
Okay.
there's no fatty buildup, there's no sugars. It's like you're really clean. The
Hmm.
medicine's a lot more powerful. And then when you purge, when you start vomiting, it's really nasty. It's
Yeah.
so nasty. It's gross. But
Yeah.
it's not as unbearable because of the diet you've been having as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was meditating a lot, doing this diet, but I was freaking out. I was really, really out of my comfort zone. I didn't know what was about to happen. Yeah, it's terrifying. And it's not something that I'd tell somebody to do unless they know they're ready. It's amazing and it's life changing, but it's no joke.
Yeah. No, I get that impression. Whenever I've seen that type of stuff, I get the impression you need to be in a good place yourself, a relatively good place, and grounded. I think also true it.
I think that really helped me meditation techniques during the really intense. I think I was maybe about 20% conscious during the ceremony.
Hmm.
Just enough to make it to the bathroom if I need like crawling along the floor.
Okay.
And if I started to panic, those grounding techniques that my therapist had taught me to do the five four five things you can hear, four things you can feel. You know this I forget
Oh,
which routine you do it in, but tune
is
into
it
the
just?
senses to ground yourself.
Oh, I get it. I heard that something recently. Right, you're walking down the street and pay attention to like the tree or pay attention to your surrounding. Like that's one sense, and then there's other
Bringing
senses
you
you
into
use.
your space, into reality, and not running away with your thoughts. Five things you can hear, four things you can see,
Yeah.
three things you can feel. Yeah, the list goes on.
Yeah, that's actually a good technique for somebody, yeah, who's like in their inner world all the time, kind of mulling things over all the time and not really aware of their surroundings or the external so much. That's
Yeah,
the way
not
of putting it.
present.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that helped a lot during the ceremony when it got a bit too much.
Did you notice any change in your art after the process?
Um, Immediately after, I created some pieces that were specifically for the story of ayahuasca. It was really psychedelic. I drew a picture because my friend wrote up a story about the whole situation, and I did the art for it. So after we talked about what happened to each of us, I drew this art that was inspired by what I'd seen and by what she'd seen during the trip.
How do you know what she thought? Was she just told you, or like,
She
or?
told me.
Oh,
Yeah, my
okay,
friend
yeah,
told me.
yeah.
And she saw like she was a frog in her
Mm,
trip.
okay,
And so I put frogs in the illustration, but then the aesthetic of it, I suppose, was inspired by what I had seen, which was super psychedelic, flying through rainbow space.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
that I would imagine it does broaden your mind. I suppose
Yeah.
the power of the intangible.
Yeah. Energy, like it was an extremely spiritual experience. Like I felt like I met God.
Mm,
This energy was just, it's what we were all made of.
yeah.
It's very, very hard to explain. People probably think, what is this girl saying?
I I think it's something you can't intellectualize. You can't really articulate. It's more like an embodied feeling that you're going through, I think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You feel it.
Yeah. No,
But
that's
yeah, it opens up my mind to know that so many things are possible.
I guess it puts things into perspective, your little life problems, and when you
Yeah,
experience that.
like those ex-boyfriends, it was like, get over it.
Yeah.
Next. It's only harming you holding on to the anger because he doesn't know that you're still angry. You don't just let it go.
I suppose is that probably one of the more powerful things, I guess you saw that you could leave go of that anger.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't matter. None of
Yeah.
it matters. All we're here for is to have a good time, to be good, do good for others, just good vibes all the time, just good energy. And it's limitless. We have up days, we have down days, but
Yeah.
yeah.
How about the meditation there? When did you start getting into meditation? Was it after yoga or were you meditating before that?
I've done a tiny bit, but nothing really serious. But I had a little crisis a couple of years ago and ended up in therapy. And my therapist, like, he's such a legend, such a great guy. And he really got me into meditation. Every day I was meditating. I got a book about it. Because my anxiety was horrific. It was so bad. Being
How
so
was it,
horrible to myself.
how was it affecting you? Like, I suppose you've got the contrast now, and like, I guess, what percentage of your days were filled with anxiety now, looking back on it, would you say?
I was not functioning.
Yeah.
I went for a run after work and had to run down a side street to cry because an old couple was looking at me.
Okay.
They looked at me, probably just because I'm a person running on the street. But at
Mm.
that time, my head spun into, you shouldn't be running on the pavement. You're annoying everybody that's in your way. You shouldn't be wearing what you're wearing. The posture's not proper. Like everything, I was just attack, 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 attack.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop that voice as soon as I didn't realize what anxiety was, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was other times I had to pull over the car because I would just start crying and attacking myself that everybody thought I was a terrible driver. And yeah, the anxiety. And I noticed now that this started happening when I was a lot younger. I used to go to parent-teacher interviews at school and have a meltdown. I'd be hysterical because I was so anxious. And in my head, they were saying all these bad, you're not a good student. But at the time, I didn't know it was anxiety.
Yeah. I'm guessing you would have just thought it was normal. It's just that's life.
And
Yeah.
then that voice gets out of control. And
Yeah.
when I stopped, I think I remember going to the toilet and I saw a sign on the back of the door. And it was like an ad for like a depression hotline or an anxiety hotline. And there was an example of a letter that somebody had written. And in a red marker pen, they'd scribbled over the top of everything and then written these really attacking words instead.
Okay.
And then it said, this is what anxiety sounds like. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That's me. That's that voice in my head. It's constantly criticizing, constantly horrible to you. Yeah. And then when it got really bad, that's when I was like, okay, something's got to change here.
What do you think it was about your therapist that made you want to give meditation a go?
I didn't want to go on medication. I went on medication when I think it was like 15. I went on the contraceptive pill. And as soon as I went on that, my mental health just plummeted. Super depressed. Like it was, I obviously had anxiety before, but the contraceptive pill really messed me up. The hormones just, it's not good for me. But at the time, I guess people never used to know that the pill does this. So I went to my doctor and I was like, I feel depressed. And he's like, I have some antidepressants. It's like that in 5 minutes. It was so easy. Just take the pills. And I was taking these pills and then it ended up in a big crisis. And it was just, I was miserable. I was so miserable. And I didn't want to get back to that point again. I was like, I'm not taking pills. This is a problem I need to address. So I was willing to try anything before going back on medication. And then I saw the meditation was really working.
Did it take long for you to start seeing that it was working for you?
I had a lot of meltdowns in my therapist's office.
Okay.
He would I'd start crying as soon as I walked in the door. Like, hi, Tim. I'd start crying. He's like, hi, Ella. And then I'd get to the point of like not being able to breathe. I was hyperventilating. And he's like, stand up, do a squat, go and touch the wall. Like bringing me back to now. He's like, okay, now we're going to tell me 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, this technique. And then he talked me through like mindfulness, your head's racing with what if this and what if that, and I think this, and then stop. Be present now. Yeah, he's a great therapist, but it also takes the home practice and the discipline too. You can't just go to this person's office and cry and bitch every week and then not do anything to change your life, in my opinion.
You have to save yourself. Nobody's going to save you. Like people can help you, but they can't save you. Like,
yeah, you've got to do it. Nobody can get inside your head and do it for you.
so was that the first time that you started seeing the difference between living in your head and being in the present moment?
Yeah, I stopped panicking. Weeks went past before a panic attack would happen. When the panic attack would happen, I would sit and I'd actually address what had happened as well. Instead of going and getting drunk or going and getting high. Yeah, not running from it. And exercise helped a lot as well. I wanted to be healthy.
Yeah, so you're steering more towards natural stuff there, I guess, the mindfulness, exercise.
Yeah, I think the pills, look, I think antidepressants can be, if you are really, really struggling, it's going to get you through a moment until you can deal with it, then yeah, do it. But it's like a band-aid, I think, sometimes you need to address it.
Yeah, I feel it's like you can get to a place where you need something to begin with, but personally, I don't think well, I'm not a doctor, but I wouldn't see it as like a long-term fix because it's also an opportunity. These mental health crises give you an opportunity to really understand yourself, take a look at yourself. Like when you start doing this mindfulness meditation, you start seeing that this thing that was very difficult and traumatic actually opened the doorway to understanding myself as a human being, as a spiritual being.
Totally. Growth comes from those difficult moments.
Yeah.
And you just need to remember when you're in the thick of the storm, this is going to pass and I'm going to learn from this. That's the hard bit. When you're actually in the thick of it, not to let yourself drown in emotions. And
Yeah. It's, I often found it like weird that it was emotions I was running from. Like obviously the different types, like there's trauma as well built in there sometimes, but sometimes it's just like I'm uncomfortable feeling nervous. Something as simple as that. You can make a big deal out of that, like why are you always nervous? And that'd be the chatter. Is actually before the call we mentioned about like that I think before I would have bought into the idea that it's only crazy people who hear voices in their head. But now I've kind of understood that it's often
everyone's
mentally grounded
crazy.
people who can see the contrast.
Everyone has those voices.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
exactly.
what those voices saying, but we're constantly,
I think it's
yeah.
very worrying when you don't see the voices though, because they've trapped you. As in,
Mm-hmm.
that's when things can get very crazy because like you're bothering yourself. You don't even know you're the one bothering yourself inside your
Yeah,
own mind. That's
yeah,
very toxic. That's not a great
yeah.
place
That
to
was
be.
me before therapy. Like, I'd say something horrible to myself. Now I'll notice, I'll be like, stop,
Yeah.
stop. But before, it would go on for days and days and days of this. You can't run properly. Those old people think you shouldn't be on the street. And it's just nonsense. Nonsense. I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the I felt like my mind was like the master to my life until I became aware of it. Then it started becoming gradually the servant of what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like something that I can use to create and connect with people and use in the service of things.
Yeah, totally. It's, yeah, like a lot of reading books and awakening, evolving as a human, spiritually, mentally.
And so for you, the art, did that help you through this process, like in hindsight, or what role did the art play throughout your life so far?
Yeah, because there's some things, like a lot of people relate to the things that I'm going through. We're never alone. There's always someone else who's going through something similar. And sometimes when I post, it's not about anything that I'm dealing with, but it's something a friend has said to me, or I see a friend going through. And I'm like, I want to know people's opinion on this. And then people have conversations with each other on that space too. And it just opens everyone's eyes and minds to all different kinds of ways of doing things, lifestyles, choices of doing whatever. And again, that's something that I think I see a lot of in my travels. So many different kinds of normal. There's always somebody else out there who's going through or dealing with what you're doing.
Hmm. And should just come back to the art there. Do you have any advice for somebody who draws? It's their passion, and they would like to make something of it in the future. Do you have any advice on how to go about that?
Never throw away your art. There's things that you can come back to in years and you might not like it at the time, but you can come back to it in years with a different opinion, a different set of eyes, and it can really evolve into something. Keep drawing, just do it, do it, do it. Social media, like I said, it's a great tool to have because you can share your art. But then at the same time, you need to be very careful with social media and your mental health. I think it's good to use it as a platform to share your art.
Uh, is there anything you do to find a balance with it? Like, do you have kind of certain time limits that you go on it, or do you do anything that way?
Well, I don't have a phone. I don't own a phone, so that helps a lot.
Hmm.
I only use my laptop, and I like to, first thing, I like to get up, do some writing, post, share something. I like to create something every day.
Are you
And
intentional?
then
Or yeah.
And then I will go about my day, do some other things. I'll check in again later. But because I don't have a phone, it's not as accessible.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I've gone through periods right where I'll take the social media apps off the phone for a while and just use the laptop to
Yeah.
post. What's always kind of gotten me those Instagram messages because I don't even access them on the computer. Maybe you can, but
Yeah, you can.
yeah, okay, okay. And maybe that was probably my own mind, like an excuse trying to get me back on the phone to download it. But
Addictive.
it is, yeah. But
That's
there's a question there. Are you pretty intentional with how you start your day then?
um I try.
Hmm.
I try. I'm a terrible morning person. Oh God. I need coffee.
Okay.
So yeah, some days I get like today. I made bread this morning. Go me.
That was a
But
good
it doesn't
morning.
happen every day.
Yeah,
Some days I'll get up and I'll just stare at useless junk in my room and procrastinate. Yeah. I try to get through my checklist. I have a checklist that I try to get through every day, whether that happens first thing to my start of my day. It's a good way to start the day because it can trail on from that, but sometimes it just doesn't happen.
yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's going easier on yourself on the days it doesn't work. And I do think there's also an element of, we might label it as procrastination, but there's also an element of just not really doing much that would actually help you with your art. Like if you're always
Yeah.
regimented in how you do things, you're going to be susceptible to seeing things in a certain way, I think, more often than rather
Yeah.
having that kind of time where you're just not focused on anything for
Yeah,
now.
you need to know when to have a break. That's a tricky one to when you're in the zone and you're like, I've just got to do it. But then also you need to have breaks.
Yeah,
Sometimes I have to, it's a real balance. Sometimes I'll stick and stay in the zone. And then other times I want to keep doing it. I'm like, no, just take half an hour, walk away, do some stretches, have something to eat. And then you're going to have more of a hunger to get back into it.
that's good advice actually, yeah, because you can easily get absorbed in what you're doing. And
Yeah. And then you go back like full steam ahead.
hmm,
Sometimes.
yeah, and again, that's a bit of a discipline again. Like it's like
Yeah.
I did find that when I started off writing and stuff, that was kind of a bad thing for me. I get absorbed in it, and my mental health suffered, and my even physical health suffered because you're not really paying as much attention to that then.
Yeah.
So,
That's why this checklist really helps me. Spend time on the computer doing things, emails, then go and do painting, like watercolor, go and do yoga, go for a walk. Yeah, it's a good balance. It's a good list that I've come
that's
up
good.
with.
That's good. No, it was good talking to you today, Ella, learning
Oh,
about your art and your travels.
yeah, great talking with you too. It's good to talk about the same kind of things people are interested in, learning
Yeah.
about the mind and art, and the things I love.
Yeah. Open up conversations. Uh,
Yeah.
where would people find you online if they want to check out your work?
They can find me on my website, which is ellabyworth.com, ELLABYWORTH, or that's my handle for everything, all my
Perfect.
socials. Yeah.
Cool. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. So yeah, thanks again, Ella. Great to
Thank
talk to you.
you so much. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. So yeah, until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.